everyone, and welcome back to Master Sight and our Game 5 of Lone Wolf. So, wrapping up the 2023 Lone Wolf. And we're going into the last game with, I believe it was 76 battle points. We got 4 220s and then a 12. I'm sorry, not 76, that's way off. 56 battle points out of the possible 80. So we're at this point sitting in kind of a grouping of battle points. A lot of 4 and 1s are sitting around here. There's a good congregation of a lot of strong players sitting between the 74 to 77 range going into last game. So we're going to be on table 4 for the tournament. So we know we're still got a lot of room to make up here. And even if we get a max win, it's likely not going to be enough to jump us up above the rest. So, so far so good with the submarine, but I don't think it's going to take us all the way to the promised land as we were hoping. But nonetheless, we're going to try our best because you never know what happens on the top tables. Maybe they do get a draw and maybe you can, get lucky. So going into the last game, we got a mirror match. So I'm going to be playing against Tristan from Texas. He's one of the disciples of Dustin. As you do as a disciple of Dustin, you play Empire Dust. So our lists have a good variation though, so it won't be a straight up mirror match, but there are a lot of similarities as there are with most Empire Dust. So Dustin's list here, he's got 3 regiments of mummies. He has 2 hordes of skeletons. He has the Soul Snare, an undead worm, a monolith. He has the Ammonite Pharaoh with the Eternal Guard upgrade for Elite Aura for mummies. He is knowledgeable with Surge 8 and Host Shadow Beast 2. So his Host Shadow Beast, he'll be getting 5 extra attacks, being bumped up to a Spellcaster 3. So he's pretty scary. He packs a good punch. He then also rounds it out with Sebek Ray and Shobik, as you do. And he has 2 reanimated behemoths. So coming in at 13 drops with 20 unit strength. So a little more elite than my list here, but with those 2 hordes of skeleton warriors, he still has some chaffiness in the army. So yeah. So the last game is going to be another progressive scoring. So we're doing Poison the Well. So this isn't really based off of any game or any core rulebook scenario in particular. If it was a core rulebook, it would be kind of a modified loot, but the loot tokens only loot because there's 3 tokens across the center line, but these tokens don't move, so it's more of a pillage scenario in that way. Anyway, so there are 3 wells across the center line, and they're placed in exact spots. All units with their majority of their footprint within 6 inches of the well are tabulated for the capturing. So after we decide who goes first, but before the first player before the first move, players secretly know. So we just did this after deployment. So after deployment and before we rolled for first turn, that's what we do. So we each picked a well, and that well would be poisoned for our opponent starting on turn 4 and going on. But the progressive scoring of the scenario starts on turn 3. So lots of things to remember with this one. Easy to kind of trip up. Anyway, a poisoned well, it causes your enemies to be -1 range, -1 melee. And your opponent only gets 1 point instead of 2 points for that well when they towards tabulating progressive scoring, and then that enemy units in there in that poison well also gain vicious. Okay. And then your own units are unaffected by the well unless your opponent chose the same one. So if both players choose the middle one, any combats within the center 6 inches of that center token are going to be -1 to hit, but everybody gains vicious. And then scoring purposes, which we'll get into here, are reduced. So victory for progressive scoring, when you're capturing a normal well, it's worth 2. A poison well is worth 1 when it's enemy poison. So the one that I choose to poison, I'll still be able to get 2 points out of it, unless that's the one my opponent chose. And then at the end of the game, if you control a normal well, you get an additional scoring point, and if it was the poisoned well, you get 0 points. So this one, unlike the previous one, this one actually is geared towards progressive scoring, so the progressive scoring is worth more than the end scores, and it was vice versa for the other ones. So a couple of bonus objectives: +3 for points for controlling more wells in a single turn than your opponent did. So if I captured 3 wells in a turn, but my opponent only ever managed to capture 2 wells in a single turn, I would get that. And then +2 bonus points for having a higher total unit strength at the well your opponent poisoned than they do at the well that you poisoned. So at the end of the game, that poison well's worth 0, but it could be worth 2 if you have more units within range of it. So yeah, this one is definitely the most complicated scenario out of all of them that we've played this Lone Wolf, and that's mainly because it doesn't have a direct correlation to a core rulebook scenario. So it's a little bit a combination of a lot of different scenarios. But I do remember this scenario was played last year at Lone Wolf, and it's changed a little bit since then. And I think the changes are for the better, because the progressive scoring last year for this one got really out of hand. It made it to where there wasn't a possibility for a comeback to mitigate a 20-0 loss if you controlled the wells for like 2-3 turns in a row. So this one, it's a much more condensed scoring, where at most you're getting, once the poison well is revealed on turn 4, at most you're getting 5 points in a turn for controlling all 3 wells. So that's worth 2 to 3 victory point difference in the end score. So I think that the adjustment to this has really come a long ways, and I think it's a really good scenario. So let's jump into meeting our new buddy, Tristan. Again, this was a tournament of firsts, I think. Never even met Tristan, let alone played him. So great guy. Dustin usually always finds and brings gems to tournaments, and it sounds like Tristan is definitely on board with Kings. So he is. It looks like he'll be around the scene for a while to come. So. And then let's go into the board. So I kind of jumped the gun. As we can see, I get first turn because I already started moving stuff. But let's cover some terrain real quick. So we did place the terrain, and in this mirror match, I know that he has he has a lot more defensive units than I do. Those regiments of mummies, the behemoths. Obviously, we both have Shobik and whatnot, but and the hordes of skeletons even. I know that all of those are an extremely difficult unit to break, and when I bounce off of one of those units, he's just going to heal it back up almost every time. So my goal with terrain placement was to try and break up his lines as best I could, and there's 1, 2, 3 impassable pieces that I used to try and do that. So we didn't know what side we were getting, but I decided to put 2 impassable pieces in the deployment zone on one side and 1 impassable on another side, and have them kind of offsetting from each other. So that way, when we move forward and our lines will start to engage, there's going to be natural gaps in those battle lines. And I'm going to try and take advantage of those as much as I can. And then also understanding that's the goal, I'm going to mitigate the opportunities I give to him from those gaps as well. So the 3 impassable pieces, he started off by putting just forests in the middle across where the tokens were going to be. He does have more striding with his 2 extra, reanimated behemoths than I do. So, I don't hate the play. Sure, that's perfectly fine. I'm just thinking here that if we get into a situation where we're hindered and we get a poison well, it's a slap fight. Nobody's gonna really kill anything ever. So yeah, he did a couple forests across the middle. We have 2 hills. Those are the blue things here. None of the other terrain actually mattered. We had a obstacle and an obstacle. So, and before rolling for first turn, seeing his deployment here, I chose the middle well. And we won't know which one he chose, but it's going to be the left one here. Not 100% sure his thought process here, but my idea of breaking up his lines kind of worked, but he decided that instead of spreading out and breaking up his lines, he was going to go just the box of death package, which I'm okay with in this scenario. So if we were playing Dominate, yeah, this is absolutely terrifying, but he's got to spread out from this if he wants to get into the other ones. And it should be said, these mat token thingies that we're using, those are only 3-inch range, so there's a good little bit more that units can be in to be controlling these tokens. So, because they were 6 inches away from the tokens for controlling, and it's only majority of your unit. So let's go ahead and take a look at his deployment. Oh, and it looks like a forest here too, or flat piece. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. So left to right, he has a horde of skeletons. Behind, he has Undead Worm, Mummy Regiment, Sebic Ray. He has Mummy Regiment. In between them is Soul Snare, the Pharaoh with the Aura Elite. Behind those is Shobik. He has 2 of his behemoths flanking those, and then way back there now is the Monolith. And his, you'll see he took the Lone Ranger as well, right in there. I'm sorry, the Wolf, not the Lone Ranger. He took the Wolf. And then he has a Skeleton Horde off to the right. So very condensed. I started by I did my double my double birds, and then I put my what's it called? I actually put my wolf across the line in front of the impassable piece, because he was the only piece that I had that could really go there, and that doesn't stop me from putting things anywhere else. So I actually used that as a drop this time around, and it's a decent enough space that I could have gone left, right, anywhere. He's quick enough to get across the lines. So, and then I have a horde of enslaved guardians out on the left. Those are normal ones, so no J boots there. I have skeleton spearmen. I have the undead worm, troop of mummies, Shobik, the birds behind, the soul snare behind, regiment of mummies, troop of mummies. So I went heavy defensive in the middle with the mummies. The spears aren't going to affect anything in this list except for the wolf. So they're a little bit less valuable in this game. They're fine for just sitting on a token, more or less, but they're the ones that aren't going to really pull their weight here. But 3 unit strength is still going to be useful. So the J boots are behind this troop. A scavenger flew out this way. Then I have my monolith on the far right, giving some inspiring, a spear unit, and then the horde way out on the right. So again, I just wanted to create a tough defensive center from front hits. Mummies on mummies, doesn't matter if it's a troop or a regiment on a troop or a regiment on a regiment. Those guys, no, neither of us are going anywhere. It's going to be a game of getting flanks and getting the surge opportunities and really being in the position and controlling those tokens. So I'm going in just knowing and thinking that it's just going to be a complete grind. And because he deployed in a box, I have to be aggressive and push up on the flanking ends of that box and force him to either contain and maintain that box, or if he overextends, threaten those flanks and those surge flank options. So my turn 1, I move up pretty aggressively, and then I surge forward. So I surge Shobik forwards from the monolith so that he can. The idea was he was only like 3 inches away from the forest, and I got 3 inches exactly. So right where I want to be, just nose into the forest so I can see through. With this, I wasn't too afraid of getting punished if I went a good 6, 7, 8 inches. His units would not have been able to charge me unless I went 8 inches. So I was willing to take the risk. And then I did a nice little bumper trick that every EoD player should have in their arsenal, which is utilize another unit. In this case, I have an individual that had Pathfinder, so he ran up into the forest, and I don't want these enslaved guardians going any further than just nose into the forest. So I put them in such a way to where they will connect here, and we will be able to see out of that forest. So very happy with the positioning to start. Also extremely happy to get first turn in this particular scenario, and progressive scoring in general. Going first is huge, but this matchup and this scenario, it's even that much more big. So we are in a great spot, I think, to start this game, and I like our odds and opportunities that we have already. So so just close-ups of his deployments here and close-ups of my finishing moves. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned, I have Sebek Ray on the left here behind these spears. So his movement, he does kind of what we expect. He pushes up, he can't really spread out from the box formation that first move, but so he just maintains it. Maintains the pressure. This was a little odd. He moved it forward and angled it, this horde inward. Not exactly sure why. This flank, like, I have this token. Like, I had first turn. He only has 3 unit strength out here. I mean, he could possibly send a mummy regiment out here, but going at that angle now across this area, like, yeah, there's a wall here, but I have a J boot regiment or a horde, and I have regiments of mummies that hitting a flank is not gonna be nice. So I already chalked up that this right token was in my control, and there really wasn't anything he could do about it. So when he moved forward in this fashion, I was a little surprised that he wasn't just facing forward and sit on the hill and threaten a off the hill charge onto a spear regiment. Maybe, I mean, it doesn't matter. I get phalanx, so no thunderous, but try and threaten something, just maintain some pressure and make it to where, I'm not collapsing in on the center. But he, is moving towards the center here, which just kind of seemed odd to me. And then what's even more odd is that his shooting phase, he surges them forward and gets a good number, like 5 or 6 inches, and now they're also in flanking distance. Not quite of the horde, but the regiment here is within range to flank them. My troop of mummies is in range to just charge them in the front. And then he does the same thing with Sebic Ray on this horde over here, and I mean, that's not even a surge, that's just a flank. I just charge in the flank there. And I'm in range in the front too with this spear unit, and I think I'm even in range with the mummy troop. And Shobik's in the flank too. Now, Shobik taking the flank, that might be kind of a bait, but yeah, I got a lot of options here, and I'm just a little confused at this point as to why he's throwing away, or what I'm looking at. I feel like he's throwing away these hordes of skeletons. Maybe this works for him in other scenarios against other armies, but yeah, I was just a little taken back. He did shoot Shobik, and I think he did 2 wounds to Shobik, so one of them actually stuck from the soul snare. Yeah, that's fine. So my turn. I just say, yeah, these are 3 unit strength hordes that I don't want you to have near the tokens. So I'm going to charge them turn 2, which is a little crazy that there's turn 2 charges in a EoD mirror match, let alone 2 flanking charges with these. So, yeah, I didn't really get an answer as to what Tristan's plan was with this. I know that when we talked throughout the game, he felt like he was pressured to get up quickly into the token areas. But that was only turn 1, and we don't start the progressive scoring until turn 3. So yeah. So I decided to do a double charge over here, utilizing the horse to keep myself in the forest to protect counter charges against the horde here. And then I just took the front charge because I'm hindered, but it gets me in a better position than just walking forward. Sebek had nothing to surge and nothing to heal, so he just ran up here to provide some inspiring. And then I position my worm in such a way that after I kill and reform, I will not be able to be charged. And then I'm in a really good spot, projecting lots of flanks. I think that Tristan was also taken back that I used these scavengers in this way, where I was out of range of 20 to charge this unit, and I was just out of line of sight. If we go back here, because of the forest, I wasn't quite able to see this regiment here. Otherwise, I probably would have charged that regiment with the scavengers. So I just tossed them up here. I figure I'm going to block this mummy unit, so that way it's just the undead worm that's going to come into, my guardians. He's not going to come into spearmen. I guess that is one other thing that spearmen affect. So, but he's also going to be hindered coming into these guys. So, yeah, I just felt very safe to take this particular play right here, and I'm also out of charge range of the of this behemoth to my large infantry, which is what I want to keep protected from that. He could charge the spearmen all day, but that's fine. And then the center, I just moved up, made a line, stayed out of 10 inches of the mummies and the character. That was the big thing. So these guys aren't nose in the forest, so I can't really see through. But in my opinion, it doesn't really matter. If I really need to get them into something, it's going to be a surge anyway at this point. Or he's going to move up and be touching the forest so I can see him. Yeah, so and then on the right we take the flank, and then like I said, we weren't quite in, so we position and move up an angle. We're going to try and surge this horde to get it a little closer, get some line of sight so it can get in on the flank the next turn here. And that's where it ends after the surge. Wasn't great. It's fine. I think I do get line of sight still, so it works out just fine. Yeah, and then setting the scavengers up. I probably should have the scavengers behind the mummies over here, but oh well. Really, one of the key things I'm also looking for with these scavengers is being able to move up and just really screw over these behemoths by either just charging the flanks so they can't pivot very well, and especially when they're in the second rank here, they're not going to be able to get through with double charges because they can't angle. Or I'll just fly them up and be a 1 inch away from these behemoths, and they're not going to be able to pivot anyway, and I'll be out of combat. So I'm really trying to abuse those base sizes on the behemoths every time I see them. I know a lot of EoD players are valuing them extremely high right now. So seeing them quite often, and for anybody else seeing them quite often, these are some of the really key tactics that I think knocks them down on that power level. So left flank goes as we expected. We got the kill, in the flank here with the horde, even hindered. We're hitting 18 times, we're wounding 15 times. And then I shot Soul Snare into it as well, did a couple wounds. Spearman maybe did a wound. We practically got him to snake and the horse, the cav as well, with 3s and 2s with vicious. So yeah, it was quite safely going to be an easy kill there. And then we reform, and then we sidestep the individual actually in such a way that anybody charging her will be hindered because we got it all the way back into the forest here. So. And then on the right flank, we didn't kill that unit, but that was expected. We were hindered in the flank, and mummy troop in the front. It's not going to do enough, but basically we were sitting there, and we were leaving our flank with this mummy troop exposed, hoping that he brought a mummy unit in. It would have been hindered. We have actually a really good chance of living against that. 24 attacks on 5s. You're only getting 8 hits. On 3s, you're only getting 6 wounds. And I'm a -14. So, and you need to roll it twice because you got to have that inspiring. So, so this is Tristan's move after shooting as well. So. He took the mummies into the front here. He charged the birds. He elected to just reposition with his undead worm. And then he moved, after these guys charged out of the way, he moved up the behemoth about 6 inches away, I want to say, from Shobik, and angled it to hit Shobik in the front. And again, I'm keeping the battle line just straight and even because I know I can't play the Shobik a little bit in front. I'll get hit in the flank by doing stuff like that. So. And he surged in and got it with just the monolith, I think it was. So only crushed 2. I'm not really. I mean, I'm not afraid. He's not going to kill Shobik. I know that for sure. And yeah, I think this might have been a mistake on Tristan's part because I'm within just front arc right here with the J boots on the Enslaved Guardians, and those guys and Shobik punching back. That's probably going to be enough to break the Dash 17 Defense 6 by itself. And he really doesn't have a way to get the other one in there. And Shobik is even kind of stuck behind a couple things because he still has his soul snare there. So, yeah, I'm looking at this thinking that I actually have good opportunities to pick up some of these defense 6 units that I really wasn't expecting, like one of these behemoths this turn. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and see what happens here. He comes in there, comes on in there. Yeah, and the soul snares shooting at some stuff, but there's really no good targets for his soul snare. With the combats that are here, he just can't get good line of sight to help out this unit. Yeah. And he countercharges the mummies here, I believe. Yep. Comes on in. He hits Shobik, doesn't break him as expected. I think he does like 7 or 8 wounds, so pretty respectable in general. But I mean, I have my soul snare there. I have Sevic Ray within range to heal him. Iron Resolve, Life Leech, all the fun stuff. Shobik just doesn't like to keep wounds on him, so he kills the scavengers with the mummies, which isn't a guarantee, but I'm not inspired, so it's much better odds for him to do it. Yeah, so this is what the board looks like at the beginning of my turn 3. So this is when the scoring starts. So on the left, I control this one quite easily. On the right, I control this one as well, because even if this unit's in, that's 3 unit strength, this is 3, and remember these tokens aren't the exact size, it's actually a 6-inch, so it's my horde is probably out for majority, but I'll have 3, 4, 5, 6 unit strength to his 3 there. And then the middle one here, he has 3 unit strength, 4 unit strength, but I have 3, 4, 5. So he didn't quite get his Shobik up in range or his other thing up in range to negate this. So I controlled all the tokens to start the turn or start the game on turn 3 for progressive scoring. So I'm up 6 points to nothing right now. And then it looks like I fast forward after. So I didn't have a picture after my movement, but I did what I was expecting here, which is charge forward with the Mummy Regiment, hit the flank here. I did the double flank because I was able to see with this angle on the Horde here. The birds actually went into the flank of the mummies, mainly because his this guy can only go into the birds right now. He doesn't have line of sight to any of the units that he could pivot past his mummies to hit. So we're going to get nice and tight in the middle here, basically, is what's going to happen. So So I leave my spears behind. I run forward and turn with everything else. So Spear's job is to sit on that token for the rest of the game. On the left, his mummies that he brought in. Let's go back here just a little bit. Yeah, I didn't really call it out last turn, but they just, left a flank open again for Enslaved Guardians, and it's one thing Enslaved Guardians can't resist. It's a juicy flank. So they take the flank. We win the combat, and they reform like that. Yeah. Spearmen held. They don't even have too many wounds. I think they're only down to like 3 wounds now after life leeching. So, yeah. And we still maintaining the pressure with the undead worm. We got lots of choices here. So I think the big thing that really swung this turn heavily in my favor is my wolf was able to get a charge into his soul snare, and I was able to pop Cloak of Death, and I think I hit 10 units with the Cloak of Death, maybe 11. And I think he only has 13 units in his army, so it was probably 10 units. But yeah, I hit damn near everything with that Cloak of Death, which means that damn near everything is within range of Brutal. So the nice chunky nerves, those dash 18s, the dash 17s, those are much more reasonable now when you have a Cloak of Death and a Brutal aura or a Dread aura going off with it. So yeah, so we picked up the Behemoth as we kind of expected. I had taken the flank with the Mummy Troop as well. So the Mummy Troop reformed. I sidestepped with Shobik to his 1 inch to his current position, and then that had enough space to just reform these guys here. And we didn't do anything hardly to these mummies. The scavengers were hindered, and my mummies were hindered, so yeah, it wasn't expected. But but we did not kill the soul snare, which that's fine. It's honestly just blocking him up more than it's doing anything for me. And there's no way the soul snare even can get out of being engaged with me right now. There's just nowhere to move. He's still in that box that he deployed in. So it's just we're chipping away at the box and replacing it with my units now that are just condensing that box even further. So top of his or bottom of 3 for his turn, he does not have control of any of the tokens, so he's behind, and definitely will need to punch a hole quickly in order to start scoring. So he moves like so. Yeah, so get some closer ups here. On the left, he went ahead and double charged these guys here, which I think is unhindered if I remember right. But 4s and 3s, 4s and 2s, 12 attacks, 10 attacks. Like 10 attacks, you're looking at 5 wounds. 12 attacks, you're looking at 4 wounds. So 9 wounds to an undamaged Enslaved Guardian horde. I mean, yeah, I'm liking my odds to survive. So, Shobik, a little weird situation here, but Shobik was like right up against stuff, and he wasn't really able to pivot and whatnot. So what Shobik ends up having to do is just sidestep, and then he'll get surged into the individual from the monolith. So again, kind of a weird situation, but it works out when you have surge. And then he took his wolf into the spearmen. Yeah, those spearmen love it when their phalanx comes into play. And then he's charging the scavengers now with with the big behemoth. So yeah, everything's just being contained. We're working on it. So Shobik does 7 wounds. He does have the Dread aura in range, and I believe he wavers my character. So perfectly fine. Whether he killed it or not, it was maybe a 6-inch overrun into the mummies, but yeah. On his turn, with this, oh no, I'm sorry. The 9 damage was for his soul snare. He heals with Sevic Ray onto the soul snare, and he gets 5 for 5 with it. So that was pretty great. So the soul snare is trying to survive, trying to live here. He does not break the enslaved guardians as we expected. He does not break my mummies with his countercharge and his Host Shadow Beast guy in the flank, which he did successfully get Host Shadow Beast off. But he does kill the scavengers, and he overruns to that position there. He does 6 wounds, and then with the Dread doesn't kill it. So this is the top of 4 look. So we reveal our poison wells. I have one here. He has one on the left. Great news is I think we forgot about actually utilizing or the poison affecting our -1 to hit. We used it as a -1 for scoring, but that I think was about it. So oops. But I score points because I'm within range of this one, so I get 1 now for this one because this was the poisoned one. I control the center because, again, he has 3, maybe Shobik's in for 4, but I have 3, 6, 7, 8. And then, obviously, there's nothing contesting me on the right. So I went ahead and go in for some combats here. So Shobik sees an individual flank, and he's done it already this tournament once, if not more. So he's going for it again. That flank into an overrun flank, hell yes, we love it. And we're going to shoot the soul snare at that guy to try and make sure it happens. I forget. I thought I was wavered. Maybe I'm not. Either way, I wasn't wavered. I countercharged Shobik. I probably don't do enough wounds for it to matter, but I actually charged the soul snare with the troop of mummies just to get it out of the way. And then I have the opportunity from where I was to just sidestep the horde into this position, and a straight line brings me into contact with the flank of the individual for a surge. So and then the mummies take the flank of the mummies, going back in with the regiment in the front, horde of skeletons into the behemoth, and the beauty. We had an angle here past his undead worm, past this tree, to see a behemoth butt to be exact. So we take a behemoth butt. So we charge the rear of the behemoth with my undead worm here. Yeah. Loving it. Cool. So yeah, on to shooting. We do some healing. We do some soul snaring. We try to keep these enslaved guardians nice and healthy. And we surge. We got the surge. Yes. We're not killing a defense 6 individual being hindered, but we stop his host Shadow Beast at least. And it looks like we're down to maybe like 6 wounds, I think it is, with the mummy regiment after regen and life leech and all the stuffs. We kill the individual. We overrun. We get enough. I think I might have used my tournament reroll on this. Um, the tournament rerolls for this game weren't anything spectacular. It wasn't even snake eyes on anything. I think it was literally I failed this thing kind of later in the game. I'll just re-roll it to re-roll it. But anyway, we get in there. We also were countercharging the worm with the enslaved guardian horde because it's one thing you can't have happening. You cannot have an undead worm, a greater air elemental, anything that's flying, nimble, and surge. You cannot have that in the thick of your lines and free to move and get surge. So, but to avoid getting flanked by the mummies when we potentially fail to kill this guy, moved up Sevic Gray into this position so that we still only get front charged by the mummies. But we don't have to worry about that because we kill that that worm. Yeah, so hey, things are working out for us this time. The dice are falling in our favor. So we're, I feel kind of bad for Tristan. He has a very similar army style as far as EoD goes, where it's tanky. It wants to absorb a hit, and then if it's able to absorb the hit, it's able to deliver the punishment afterwards. So if this didn't work out, he had a Shobik flank on my Shobik, but I went for it anyway. Yeah. So at this point, I feel pretty confident. We're off to a really good start in the scoring. I don't think there's any way we lose the right hand well. And now knowing the poisoned well is on the left, and that's possibly the one we actually lose. It's worth the least amount of points to us anyway. I'm fine with that trade. So we're taking a little gambles. We're getting paid off, and we're winning right now. This mummy troop is actually facing forward, but they have sticks and swords that poke stuff. So, but we did kill the mummy regiment as well. So he wasn't able to heal them. His regen were just average, so they were maintaining wounds. And the big thing is I have the Dread Aura still in range, so killing the mummy regiments wasn't terribly likely, but it's still possible. It's obviously possible. And we failed to kill the behemoth, but that's perfectly fine. That's really not expected. 30 attacks in the rear, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s. I mean, you're looking at 10 wounds, and then the spear horde, the warrior horde's not doing anything. So, needing a 7 twice, 6 twice with the dread, that's well within not breaking range, obviously, so. But yeah, this is where we're at on Tristan's turn 4. And unfortunately, again, he's being held out of all the wells, and he's running out of unit strength at this point. So he still does not score any points for the wells. So his combat, he goes into the enslaved guardians. He goes back into the individual. He actually does countercharge the worm, but because of the tail and where we're at, we just leave him there. So yeah, we don't even bother. And I think he charged into the mummy unit with the individual as well. But Shobik comes in and just kind of whiffs, doesn't really do anything. He only gets 4 hits after he killed the individual and overran into this position. So again, kind of feel bad for Tristan. The dice aren't going his way, but he does pick up the enslaved guardians on the left. So, and this is a full unit or fresh unit of mummies over here. So, that left hand flanks in his favor at this point. So But turn 5, top of 5 goes to me. I have 4 points now from these two wells. The left one I do not control anymore. Yeah, but really I've gotten to a point where I've put a good amount of wounds on this thing. And I think I have a good chance of breaking it because this mummy unit and this mummy unit can both see it. I just need to make room. And that's what I do. I back up the horde. Yeah. Back up the horde so that both these guys can flank him. Because he wasn't able to reform any other way besides looking straight to the left or straight to the right. So he looked back at these guys. So double charge there to try and clean that guy up, which we do, and we turn back towards the center, obviously. And then on the left, I decided that the flank into Shobik wasn't really... it wasn't very likely that I actually killed Shobik. And he had the individual there still, so I charged the individual, ended up killing him. So I took Shobik into the mummies along with these guys, and I got lucky. Oh my god. Because I'm pretty sure those guys were fresh. There's no way I should be killing those guys at all. And maybe they were just out of inspiring range or something, but anyway, this is the picture at the end of the game. I might have skipped a whole turn here as well, but yeah, basically once Tristan only had Shobik left, and I believe his he was starting to pick up some stuff at this point. He had Sebek Ray. He might have even had these mummies left, because I only see a 5 wounds out there. So I don't think I actually killed them. But he wasn't within range of the well. And I had Sebek in position to stop him from being able to withdraw, sidestep to get in range of it. So, Tristan at this point, he basically, him and I were talking throughout, and he basically said that, the game was kind of over when, we acknowledged that first turn was a big deal, and then me being able to deploy wider than him and, double engulf his box deployment that he had, because he was forced to come forward out of the protection of those two impassable terrains. We agreed that this was, kind of an uphill battle to say the least, and this game was almost over turn 2, turn 3 when things started crumbling. But Tristan's a really good guy. I think that he just didn't he had a plan, but he wanted to be first turn. He wanted to be, I think, on the other side of the board, and when those things didn't go his way, he just didn't come up with the next best plan afterwards. So I don't want to say he gave up, but I think that he got demoralized when things just weren't looking good out of the gate, and he obviously just kind of pushed things forward and was hoping for the best. And my dice, Tristan, you needed my dice from a couple of last game or the first game, and those dice got evened out on you. So I was rolling obviously exceptionally well, and picking up units when I needed to do so. And it just made this a very one-sided encounter. So, but we end the tournament on a 20-0. So we are at 76 battle points out of the possible 100 battle points. And we're definitely we shot up there. We've come a long ways, but it wasn't quite far enough to get the trophy again. But we definitely settled for second general, and especially when first general goes to the only person we lost to this event. So big shout out to Jesse. Congratulations. He has a really tough army. He plays it very well. And from my understanding, he had a couple of really close games throughout the event. I think one of them was even an 11-9 victory for him. So he was only holding on to it by the skin of his teeth a couple times, but he got a couple 20-0s in there too, I'm sure. So, yeah, in the end, I think overall I finished fifth place. I think in battle I finished third or fourth place. I'm pretty sure Jesse was on top, and then I think it was fourth because I'm pretty sure Jeff Radigan and Dustin Howard were in the mix just ahead of me in the high 70s, possibly low 80 range. But then I think there was a decent gap from me to the next battle placement at least. So, and then Ryan Smith was the only one battle wise that I didn't mention, but I do know he finished, I believe, fourth overall because he had a beautifully painted army. And he did well with it. I think three or four wins himself. So, congratulations to him too. He walked away with third overall, I want to say, or maybe he got the best painted award. But I think he would have gotten second or third overall otherwise. So first overall went to Dustin. First general went to Jesse. Second overall went to Jeff Radigan. Second general went to myself. Yeah, so it was it was a really close bout up at the top end of that leaderboard at the very end. But I think in the end, the right people came out ahead on the right awards. So congratulations to everybody, and it was just a blast hanging out and getting to see everybody. Like I think I mentioned before, this was my favorite of the 3 Lone Wolves I've been to. I think the tournament just keeps getting better and better every year. And the people that I meet and come back and hang out with are the reason that I want to come back again. So really had a blast, and I'm hoping that from the sounds of it, most everybody's going to be coming to Omaha, here, my neck of the woods, for either Bug Eater or the Best of the Rest / Masters event that's happening in July. So I really hope that everybody can make it. It would be awesome to see a huge group of Texas guys. I know we're going to have a huge group of Minnesota guys and a huge group of mountain players in the Best of the Rest event. So, I think Tennessee, with specifically out of the Southeast, is going to be bringing a large number as well. So it's really shaping up to be an awesome event. So if, those of you that weren't planning on showing up, I hope you reconsider, take a look at it, and let me know if you have any questions. I will put a link in the video here for the information for that event, and I hope to see everybody there. It's really going to be an awesome event that we have planned. So again, big thanks to Mark Cox, and a big thanks to everybody that was watching. I have a lot of fun doing these, and I've gotten a lot of awesome feedback, so I really appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to me ramble about my games, and hopefully you pick up a couple tips and tricks along the way to implement in your games too. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys for this last game of Lone Wolf. Thank you again, and we'll see you on the next time.